Salutations everyone, it is Matty here, and I hope this video finds you well. Persona 5 Royal is one of the most inspiring creations I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. It was a particularly special entry in a franchise I've loved for a long while. It was so beyond delightful that it has myself, as well as my friends asking, where do they go from here? That's the goal of this video, as we have broken it up into 3 chapters. First are the new additions to Persona 5 Royal, and how Atlus could take advantage of this when creating their next Persona game. After, we will analyze the status of remakes and ports for the series, as well as where Atlus stands with them. Lastly, we will wrap up things talking about current spin-offs and where Persona 5 may continue in the future. This project would not have been possible without my friends Never and Cool Dude, as well as Dustin, who is editing this entire huge project for us. We hope you enjoy and see the fruits of many weeks of effort throughout the entire video. And now, let's get started. Let's begin things with a general overview of some of the numerous brand new additions to the game, such as new confidants, villains, activities, palaces, and so on. No matter how you view these changes and additions to Persona, one thing is clear, and that's that the Persona landscape has definitely changed with a new standard being set. With these numerous additions to the game, we can now speculate on what to expect from future Persona titles as well. And we're going to start this off with darts. The new darts minigame is used to take advantage of the baton pass system in Persona 5. This system was available in the original Persona 5 game, but was expanded upon in Royal. In Royal, the system has more depth and layers than simply switching characters. The new baton pass mechanic has added 3 new rankings alongside perks with every rank. So you go at rank 1, attack boost, rank 2, HP recovery, and then rank 3 is SP recovery. When you invite a teammate to play darts, you are given a score, and together, while taking turns, you have to win a single game of darts in order to rank up your baton pass. When you invite a teammate, you're given a score, whether it be 301, 501, or 701. You and your teammate then play a game of darts, and if you beat 301, you get up to rank 2 for that baton pass. 501 will bring you to rank 3, and only one specific character in the entire game requires you to get 701 to hit that rank 3. With this mechanic, you could baton pass to your teammates while giving them additional damage alongside SP and HP recovery depending on that rank, which can now allow you to stay in dungeons longer and is crucial for some of those tougher battles within Persona 5 Royal. This feature is very likely to carry over into future Persona games. I'd be shocked if it just suddenly disappeared. Perhaps they could add more to this system, increasing your accuracy with each baton pass, increasing crit chance with each baton pass. What about healing skill efficacy? There's so many options there to expand. Not only is it a fun mechanic to use, but it displays the bonds with your teammates, which is one of the key components of the Persona franchise. Future Persona games should consider having mini games that reward players with permanent buffs instead of just being a fun gimmick, say like the batting cages. It's cool they're there, and it's nice that Kasumi's social link plays into that at one point, but outside of that, it's just a fun thing you can do. There's no real reward there that carries it into the palaces. But with this mechanic here, darts, it's very helpful because once you hit max rank, you get that HP recovery, SP recovery, and attack boost, and that's so vital to staying in the palaces longer. Next is billiards. Billiards is a new mechanic that's also added to Royal, and this activity is used to upgrade the amount of damage you get through technicals. Technical attacks are a reworked mechanic that takes advantage of status ailments inflicted on enemies or players. In previous Persona titles, status ailments were not very useful when used in combat compared to other options available. You can easily use these status ailments to tip the balance of a battle greatly to your advantage, and each ailment inflicted has a specific condition to apply a technical attack. So a couple examples here are if you inflict an enemy with shock and then follow up with a nuclear attack, that will trigger a technical. Or if you inflict an enemy with sleep and then follow up with a magic or physical attack, that will also trigger a technical, and there are many more ways to trigger said technicals. By inflicting a technical, the player can do not only massive damage, but has a chance until deeper ranks to down a target for a 1 more, which has been a key component of the Persona franchise for a long while and really feeds off that baton pass mechanic. Status ailments can be applied through a number of ways. Personas have the ability to apply ailments, upgraded guns from EUI. There's also unique melee weapons with the ability to strictly inflict ailments. By playing billiards, you can upgrade the damage multiplier of the technical damage while also increasing the knockdown rate with each rank. And the final rank, as I said earlier, of billiards will allow the player to instantly down targets with these technical attacks. This is another instance of Royal rewarding players for partaking in these activities with permanent combat buffs. Playing billiards with your teammates is another way the game conveys that power of friendship through the gameplay mechanics, and it's absolutely one of the strongest parts of the title. This is not only a feature that could show up in future Persona titles, but is a must for those future Persona games. The whole dynamic of status ailments and technical damage brings a new level of strategy and variety to the combat system. It makes savage enemy encounters easier to handle, but also more strategic other than healing up a storm and just trying to deal as much incremental damage as possible. We could see an expansion of this mechanic also in the future Persona titles. We have two good ideas for that. One is arcade games. They can also complement gun abilities by adding a few new mini games for Persona 5 that buffer this experience. These arcade games are not really utilized in the base game of Persona 5 as well as Persona 5 Royal. What we can hope to see in the future is arcade games being directly tied to your weapons. It's possible that arcade games could be a daily activity like billiards or darts. You invite your teammates to play gun arcade games that unlock a series of perks like increasing gun damage and accuracy, increase the likelihood of inflicting status ailments, or increase gun critical hits. There's so many options once again. I mentioned the batting cages earlier, and in P5 as well as P5R, all they do is increase your proficiency. In the future, we could see the players inviting their teammates to something like the batting cages to increase their critical hits with regular melee attacks. There is just clearly that extra bit of room available for Atlas to add something in. How about jobs as well? There's always a source of money and social stat here, but not much else for the player. Social links in the past Persona games, such as Persona 4, have been tied to some jobs, where 5's most significant value is the access to some requests and mementos, which is optional, and I think that's a smart design decision in a number of ways. But you could expand upon these jobs with skills you can only access through there, providing motivation for the player to choose to spend time here. The idea we're really chipping away at here is giving the player tons and tons of options on how to create the most unique builds for their character. So the game's not replayable only in the sense of choice and consequence and Persona builds, but also how your MC ends up at the end of the game based off the free time they spend. Another new addition to Persona 5 Royal is Third Awakenings. We saw this in Persona 4 Golden as well. A new rank for each of your teammates would unlock, allowing the character to awaken to a new, more powerful persona. These awakenings are very useful and allows your teammate to unlock a powerful skill. This incentivizes the player to go out and achieve those max bonds and be as efficient as possible with that time spent. For example, by equipping a persona that matches up with the arcana of that social link. Prior Persona games usually only have Third Awakenings in their re-released versions, so it would be very interesting in a future Persona game to just have the Third Awakening in the base game. I know, it's crazy, right? These Third Awakenings make your journey throughout the game much more special by seeing the character reach a new understanding about themselves. To see your hard work and time spent hanging out and developing a bond with a certain character materialize into a brand new, unique, powerful ability is something that future Persona titles could include as well. And that does mean that there needs to be more time available in game itself for that Third Awakening to happen. Now, we definitely didn't forget this one. Let's talk showtimes. The concept of showtimes is not something new with Persona 5 Royal. Persona 4 had something a little similar to the showtime attacks, but they were definitely less flashy and occurred at random times, like Chie and Yukiko would suddenly team up. Persona 5 Royal takes the concept of showtime and expands on it to a whole new level. In Royal, every teammate you have is introduced to 2 unique showtimes with 2 other teammates, and under certain conditions, 2 teammates can initiate this dual ultimate move, whether a teammate's HP is low, Joker's HP is low, the enemy's HP is low, or a baton pass has occurred, which is the best feeling there because all these mechanics, as we've continued on with this video, are intertwined. However, in future Persona titles, can you expand upon this? The answer, as always, is yes. The higher your Confidant rank is, the more damage that Showtime could do. The Showtime has a higher chance to occur, perhaps, or the Showtime could heal the party. And what about romancing a character? This is one of the key aspects of Persona 5, but there's never been a benefit outside of just creating a special relationship with someone. Romancing them allows the Showtime to maybe activate more if the protagonist is at low HP and hit for more damage, symbolizing that bond that they particularly have together. Also, just make romance worth something in the gameplay. Now let's talk about challenge battles. These are certain battles set up to really test your skills in combat, and they revolve around a point system by doing specific actions such as 2x point with electric attacks, or 4x points with a Haru attack, or 7x point if you land technical damage. In future Persona titles, we can see this mode easily expanded to other territories of the game with even more options, such as, say, a boss rush mode. P5R is a very long game, and that's putting it lightly, reaching an average completion time of around 100 to 150 hours. Not everyone has the time to play a New Game Plus to go back and revisit parts of the game they love, make separate save files to re-experience certain battles. What if you had a favorite palace or a favorite section of the game you like, but reaching it requires 50 or 60 hours in New Game Plus to reach? Palace challenge battles would be an interesting and ideal evolution to these challenge battles. Once you start a New Game Plus, a brand new series of challenge modes appear. These challenge modes allow you to replay a certain palace or a certain boss with its own score and rewards. All enemies could be level 99 with new shadows, or perhaps completing the palace in a certain amount of time, or don't get detected by any shadows. There's once again a lot of room here, but most notably is that challenge battle system where we can continue to fight the bosses that we really liked in the base game, but it just takes way too long to reach them. This not only rewards the player for going back and just re-experiencing some of their favorite moments, but you can also mess around with some of your high-level gear and personas that you spent so long getting together, but you don't really have anything to test your abilities against. Alright, it's Jazz Club time. There's a new area called Kichijoji, and this offers the brand new Jazz Club amongst other features that we mentioned earlier, such as the darts and billiards. The Jazz Club offers such a variety of perks and benefits and is one of the best endgame additions. It's pretty much an upgrade for Persona 4's movie theater. When attending the Jazz Club, you have an option of inviting one of your teammates, and depending on what day it is, you get a random stat buff that can be applied to the teammate's persona. If you take your teammate on a Tuesday or Thursday, they will increase their SP alongside an increase in magic and agility stats. If you take your teammates on Sunday, there is a possibility that they might acquire a brand new skill. On top of all these benefits, there's also a set amount of dates in which a Jazz Club singer could show up, which doubles the stat upgrades. The Jazz Club editions give you a whole other level of customization in Persona that is missing in other titles. Instead of having teammates that are bound to certain skills, you can always play around and adjust their skills and Persona stats to your liking. Persona 3 or 4 could benefit from a similar system in, say, a remake or a future entry in the franchise by allowing you to engage in another free time activity that impacts both relationships as well as builds. See, the key component here is always making sure that Persona creates a mechanic that is interesting for the player to engage in during their free time, increasing their bond with someone else, and representing that properly in the gameplay when you're battling shadows. And so that's the way that Atlus can continue to expand here. They came up with persona traits as well in Persona 5 Royal. Every single persona has a set trait, and even some throughout the game have unique traits only made for them. Every trait is different, and each trait has a different effect, from decreasing SP usage for a particular element to strengthening power for a specific element. Persona traits bring a uniqueness to certain personas and also aid in the building that we were talking about. For example, in Persona 5 Royal, Alice has a unique trait called Just Die. Besides the cool name, this trait reduces SP costs of all insta-kill skills to 0. This brings a level of uniqueness to that specific persona, but also when you're fusing them together, you can transfer certain traits to future personas and really galaxy brain things, which is one of the best feelings in the game because it rewards your knowledge of that Persona compendium. Now, it's no secret that Persona 5 Royal also brought new characters to the table. Persona 4 Golden was an amazing game. For me personally, a top 3 of all time. But unfortunately, the new character Marie isn't really one of the best additions to the game. I'm not saying she's a bad character by any means. Her dungeon and her boss fight, that stuff was great. But it was very clear that this was a newly added character, and Persona 4 didn't do the best job in placing her into the story without causing a disturbance to what originally happened in that game. However, the new characters in Persona 5 Royal, in my opinion, are quite the opposite. You have Takuto Maruki, the counselor, as well as Kasumi Yoshizawa, who's a part of the Faith Arcana. They are placed in the story with near perfection. I know that's a bit of a meme here, but seriously, near perfect. They exist in the world, and their purpose for being here makes sense. Their seamless additions make it hard to tell that they are even new characters at all. I have a friend who just got into Persona, and they actually didn't even know that these were new characters. I think that is a testament to how great of an addition these characters are to the game. Considering Atlus continues to re-release each of their Persona games dating back to the very first Persona game, where Revelations Persona on the PS1 and the PSP version are completely different, I imagine they will do this yet again in the future with, say, a Persona 6. So I do hope they keep in mind how important it is to get the addition of new characters right in these games. Now let's talk lastly for the Persona 5 Royal section about villains. In all Persona games, you are faced with a multitude of villains who harass, murder, lie, steal, and overall are designed to hurt others. Most villains in Persona 5 are presented in a negative light to really show off how distorted their desires are. As a player, you really don't think twice about going after them and changing their heart, except in the third semester. Now, without spoiling anything, because this is a spoiler-free video, the new villain introduced in Royal is very thought-provoking and makes the characters question their ideals and beliefs unlike any previous Persona game. The mark of a great villain is when the audience understands them and their choices. More villains like this need to be in future Persona games because it creates doubt within the player and the characters and ultimately makes you question yourself and what exactly is right. Royal created a bond with its villain unlike any other prior Persona title. It's always some otherworldly figure, it feels like, but this one was very grounded and it infinitely improved the story almost immediately. I don't think I only speak for myself when I say that I love the older Persona games. I could still easily go back to Persona 4 Golden and enjoy a complete playthrough of that title despite how great Persona 5 Royal is, especially in its gameplay. For me, like many others, my journey with the Persona franchise began with Persona 4 Golden. Then I went back to Persona 3 Portable and patiently waited for the Persona 5 release in 2017. With that all in mind, as much as I love these games, I'd be a liar if I said they couldn't improve at all. Maybe Atlus's future with the Persona franchise is not another numbered entry, but rather remaking/porting older Persona titles while they expand the story of 5. Let's take a look at this. During a recent consumer survey held by Atlus on February 7th, 2020, the survey asked if consumers were particularly interested in ports of their old games on the Nintendo Switch, something highly requested from fans. These games included Revelations Persona, Persona 2 Innocent Sin / Eternal Punishment, Persona 3, Persona 3 FES, Persona 3 Portable, Persona 4, Persona 4 Golden, Persona 5, Persona 5 Royal, as well as Persona Q, but surprisingly no mention of Persona Q2. Now, Atlus may be working on this for the Switch since the game was very successful critically but failed commercially due to its release on the Nintendo DS when Nintendo had already mostly moved past that console. Ports of titles prior to Persona 5 are possible. Revelations Persona originally released on the PlayStation 1 and was ported to the PSP and PS Vita. Persona 2 Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment originally released on the PlayStation 1 and was ported to the PSP. Persona 3 FES originally released on the PlayStation 2 and was ported to the PlayStation 3 for a downloadable game, as well as a re-release on the PSP and Vita by the name of Persona 3 Portable. Persona 4, originally released on the PlayStation 2, was available for download on the PlayStation 3 and re-released as Persona 4 Golden exclusively and still exclusively to the PS Vita. Persona Q and Q2 are stuck on the Nintendo 3DS, as Q2 sold poorly in Japan and may end up getting that port to the Switch since the 3DS interest continues to decline. Persona 1, 2, and as much as it pains me to admit, even 3 are outdated in many areas compared to modern standards. Remakes for these games may be a smarter choice to bring more attention to these older games, especially Persona 1 and 2. Two Persona games that nobody really talks about when that conversation comes up. Persona 4 Golden is the only game out of all of them that isn't totally outdated and could really still compete with the modern games market, mostly due to its strong popularity with gamers. Let's generally focus on remaking games for now. During every Atlus consumer survey since 2017, Atlus has asked consumers if they are interested in remakes of older Persona games. Persona 1, 2, 3, and even 5 have all been options in the survey since 2017. Persona 4 was finally listed as an option in 2018. Now, the option for a Persona 5 remake was even asked during 2019, the year that Persona 5 Royal was revealed. In that 2019 survey for the Persona 5 remake, it was held on March 1st, 2019, and 5 Royal was revealed on April 24th, 2019, already in development and in the final stages of its production. The Persona 5 remake option was then removed in the 2020 survey, meaning that Atlus was indeed asking us about Persona 5 Royal at that point in time. The question for remakes of the older games have been asked for the last 3 years, so there is room for something to happen there. The question for remakes of the older games has been asked for 3 years now, so there is room for something to happen there. But what is the likelihood of a remake or a port/remaster? Well, Revelations Persona and Persona 2 have been requested by many people. There was a rumor floating about that Persona 1 and 2 remakes would be announced at the New Game Plus Expo for June 23rd, 2020. 2021, however, more factually speaking, is the 25th anniversary of the Persona series, and it would be interesting to celebrate the series with a remake of the games that started it all. Now, I'll admit, I went back to record gameplay for Persona 1 on the PlayStation 1, and that bad boy has not aged all that spectacularly, but it has a very unique atmosphere to it. It's borderline creepy, and I think it would vibe with a lot of Persona fans nowadays. These games are vastly different from Persona 3, 4, and 5. For example, Persona 1 does not have the social links that make this series so popular, but there is room with its colorful cast of characters to perhaps explore that option. Now, one of two options could happen for a remake. Either it is a faithful remake of the game with updated gameplay, mechanics, visuals, etc. Like, you don't even have the specific 4-man team that Persona really honed in on with Persona 3. Sticking with this line of thought, this could be something similar to Resident Evil 2's remake, where it remained faithful but modernized the franchise in a number of ways. It would not have the modern Persona mechanics such as social links, and some modern fans may steer away from that since it's quite different from the games that we've become very familiar with to this point in time. Number 2, and I think this would be the best route personally, is a reimagining of the game with modern day Persona mechanics, something similar to Final Fantasy VII's remake. It would be a very different game from the original, and it may cause backlash from the original fans of the game, but this would include a lot of story rewriting, possible lore changes to allow for the modern day Persona mechanics such as the social links, confidants. It disrupts the pacing of the story entirely. It would quite literally be an entirely brand new game. Atlus treats Persona 1 and 2 similar to how Bethesda treats Fallout New Vegas, right? They just don't acknowledge the game unless they really have to. It's very rarely mentioned at all. These two games don't get enough attention though. That is a fact. They are what began this series and led to the games that we love today. And I think that it would be in Atlus's best interest to maybe start including them more. Atlus likes to do crossovers between Persona and other series. However, it's usually 3, 4, and 5. What happens if they remake Revelations Persona? And then suddenly that's another option on the table and another great cast of characters that we can get to know. Now, if there's a remake I want for any Persona game, it's Persona 3. This has been highly requested by the people. Persona 3's remake randomly started trending on January 31st of 2020. And a fun fact, this is the same day as the final battle of Persona 3. But anyway, fans got the hashtag Persona 3 remake trending, asking Atlus to remake the game. IGN even covered this very moment here. Now, while Persona 1 and 2 is where the series began, Persona 3 is where the series got its popularity from and where it cemented the future of its design. Now, if we really want to galaxy brain things here, the FES in Persona 3, FES stands for festival, and a festival would be an interesting way to celebrate Persona's 25th anniversary. Now, out of all the modern Persona games, Persona 3 is definitely the most outdated and needs the remake the most. Some of the big complaints from fans is that Tartarus is a very outdated design. Social link quality is mixed. You either have some really good ones or some really poor ones. Party members could not be controlled in the FES version, and I'm gonna be honest, guys, Fuka exists. Come on. What is her point here? Why does she exist? No offense, Fuka, but come on, step it up. A remake is very possible, though, since many assets have been created for Persona 3, and I would not be surprised to see this announced one day. Let's take a look. We have Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight. You have new character models for the entire main cast except Koromaru. You have new animations for the whole main cast. However, most of these animations are dancing animations, so I'm not going to trick myself. But still, they're moving models in the game. The game has recreated even certain locations that are used in the dancing games, such as Gekogan High. There's also assets created for the bedrooms of the main cast members. It's fully voiced, and we have new voice actors for Junpei as well as Fuka. This means they would not have to recast the characters unless something crazy happens. This whole scenario becomes infinitely more interesting when you take a look at Persona 5 Royal's DLC and what they've done to include aspects of Persona 3 here. From the main character, the male protagonist of Persona 3, to also some of the personas from Persona 3 that have been sold as DLC. Makoto, the male protagonist from Persona 3, has multiple animations including summoning his persona, going down, doing melee attacks, as well as idle animations. Personas from Persona 3 are included here as well, such as the male and female Orpheus. The female Orpheus is for the female protagonist. You have Thanatos, Messiah, and Athena, who is Aegis's persona. Now, it's interesting that they recreated and animated her persona out of all of the other cast members in 3 and 4. Just, thinking a little deeper on it. The challenge battles from Persona 5 Royal are essentially a better version of the challenge doors that we see in Persona 3 Portable. And we can see many elements from Persona 5 Royal carry over into this Persona 3 remake, such as confidant perks. So as you increase those social links, you receive gameplay buffs, mini games with gameplay enhancing buffs, the baton pass, persona traits. Most of the personas in Persona 3 are in Persona 5, so Atlus would not have created this many personas just so that they could throw them in the game. They can just recreate any missing ones from the original game's compendium. So we found this a bit fishy. For example, Alilot is a returning persona from Persona 3 to Persona 5 Royal. Now, one issue is that Persona 3 does not include handcrafted dungeons like in Persona 4 Golden, or more specifically, the palaces of Persona 5 Royal. Instead, it's randomly generated, and it's called Tartarus, similar to what you've experienced in Mementos with Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal. They could do one of two things here. Tartarus can be separated into 6 blocks. Each block could be a uniquely handcrafted dungeon like in the palaces we saw with Persona 5 Royal. They could still have a section of Tartarus to be randomly generated in case the player needs to grind levels. Number 2, they could apply the design and elements from Mementos into Persona 5 Royal into Tartarus, and the full moon bosses can have their own short, unique dungeons. However, for story reasons, the player would have to do this in one day, and on very specific days. Persona 3 Portable includes also the female protagonist, who's gained a lot of fans since her debut. Atlus may opt to include her into the game, and they absolutely should. They need to start doing this in the Persona franchise. Have a male protagonist and a female protagonist, and change how the game reacts to who you are. However, The development time may drastically increase since the FemC had unique social links, music, animations, and interactions that differentiated her from her male counterpart. Animated cutscenes that involve the protagonist would have to be doubled now, since they have to account for both the male and female protagonists. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, this may not increase development time, since Atlus will sometimes contract an animation studio to create the animated cutscenes, but the budget will now increase because they're making double the animated cutscenes. So it's a tug of war there, and as a business, they have to make sure they are making money, but I think that representation is very important. Atlus has also barely mentioned the FemC. The only time she got substantial attention was when she was added to Persona Q2, which unfortunately, again, sold poorly, but she was very well received from fans in-game. Now, on the controversial side of things, the most notable aspect of Persona 3 was the add-on to Persona 3 FES called The Answer. The add-on took place after the completion of the main game. It was very difficult and wasn't the most well-designed dungeon. Certain characters were seen in a worser light from the community, to put it lightly. Atlus may or may not want to include this add-on, and if they do, some major overhauls will have to have made their way into the game. This could be potentially sold as DLC as well. I don't want to eliminate that possibility. Unlike Persona 5 Royal, the new content was completely separate from the base game and not part of the main story. Developing the main story of Persona 3, the FemC route, the answer, may be a lot of work and have a long development cycle. That's the fact right there. However, as previously mentioned, many assets, character models, and animations have been created along the way and can also shorten this development cycle, but also, with the likes of the Persona 3 dancing game, have made Atlus money along the way. Persona 3 is a long game, but not nearly as long as Persona 5 Royal. An average playtime for 3, 4, and 5 are listed here. Persona 3 Portable/FES ranges from 60 to 80 hours. Persona 4/4 Golden will bring you from 70 to 90 hours. Meanwhile, 5/5 Royal is in that 100 to 150 hour range. It's a substantial difference. Since it's a much shorter game, perhaps they could account for doubling up some of their efforts on the animated cutscenes, the animations, to include that female character because the game is inherently shorter. When it comes to Persona 4 Golden, this has also been requested by many people to come back, but a lot of the requests are just a port from modern consoles. Persona 4 Golden is quite literally stuck on Vita. For a lot of gamers, it would be a win just to go ahead and see Persona 4 Golden come to PS4, come to the Switch. That's what people want. And Atlus has said in the past that they are aware of the demand of a Persona 4 port. This is probably the least likely of the 4 other games to get a remake. Persona 4 Golden is already a really good JRPG that isn't entirely outdated outside of a few aspects such as the dungeon layout as well as some of the side content that you can acquire. And this is not me trying to sound like a fanboy, but I feel only a few aspects could truly use polishing and that other games in the franchise could really benefit from a remake. Also, I think if Atlus were to do a proper remake of 3, it could spark the conversation as well as a desire for Persona 4 to get a full-on remake. The last Persona 4 spin-off we saw was in 2015 with Dancing All Night. Compared to Persona 1, 2, 3, and even 5, this game has had so many spin-offs, including 4 Arena, 4 Arena Ultimax, the Persona Q series, Persona 4 the animation, Persona 4 the Golden animation, and the dancing game. There was a lot of Persona 4 to the point where a lot of people got tired of it. So a port of Persona 4 Golden, not a full-on remake, makes a whole lot of sense to a lot of us here. Recreating the game may end up being the same workload as Persona 3. We have character models of the main cast from Persona 4 Dancing All Night. Also in Persona 5 Royal, yet again, the protagonist of Persona 4 is here fully modeled with animations from attacks to summoning, as well as being downed. And certain personas from Persona 4 Golden have been sold as DLC, such as Izanagi, Magatsu Izanagi, Izanagi no Okame. So there is less there compared to Persona 3, which once again is quite peculiar. Now, while a Persona 4 Golden remake would be great, the original game still holds up and may not be ready for a remake just yet. A port of Persona 4 Golden would be just fine. So in conclusion, Persona 1, 2, 3, and 4 could see a remake even if it's many years from now, but most likely is 1 through 3. Even if Atlus does continue to ask consumers in their surveys if they would like to see a certain game, a remake in this case, this does not mean they haven't started working on it. So if they're asking you about a Persona 4 remake or a Persona 3 remake, this does not mean that they aren't working on it. Persona 3, 5 Dancing, as well as Persona 5 Royal were all listed as options of games in their surveys, even though they were all midway or late into their development. Even though Persona 5 Scramble has been revealed, a survey question for a Persona action RPG is still being asked by Atlus in their 2020 survey. With that 25th anniversary coming up, the Persona team has teased that they are working on something for it, hopefully something big. The Persona team at Atlus usually supports spin-offs while they work on big projects. A remake would be an interesting choice to celebrate the 25th anniversary, but I feel like if they were celebrating the anniversary, it would have to be the start of the series, not just 3, but then you can argue yet again that 3 was the beginning of the popularity. It can go either way. Now, there's no confirmation that there is a port or a remake that could happen within this year or the next year. However, they are very much possible and could happen within some near distant future here, especially since the games industry has been trending towards remakes, definitive editions, remasters, and re-releases as of late, and I imagine because it's free money for a lot of them, they will continue to do so. It does appear already that Atlus is interested in porting the older Persona titles. Persona 4 Golden is leaving its home on the PlayStation Vita and heading to PC. This was confirmed thanks to a leaked de novo support page, as well as an icon/banner on the SteamDB app page. It's absolutely happening, and it makes you wonder where else Atlus wants to bring their lovely Persona titles to. Now, in our final chapter, let's talk about spin-offs and the future of Persona 5 in general. Persona 5 related spin-offs are already available. We have 2 thus far. One being Dancing in Starlight, which released on December 4th of 2018, and Persona Q2, which released June 4th, 2019 in the West. Does Persona Q2 really count? I don't know. It's more of a spin-off of Persona in general, along with Etrian Odyssey, especially since it combines the casts of 3, 4, and 5, becoming a wide celebration of Persona instead of just spinning off from 5 itself. I think this credits its actual possibility of being a Persona 5 spin-off, and more so, just another Persona game. But still, it released within the window of that Persona 5 hype. Dancing in Starlight, while it is a legitimate spin-off, hardly counts in the story department, as it stated almost immediately that the characters will forget any events that transpired during this game. So far, these additions and spin-offs are copies of what Persona 4 has done with its additional entries, where you look at Golden versus Royal, Dancing All Night versus Dancing in Starlight, Q1, Q2. So it's kind of replicating what's there. Persona 5 Scramble, however, is where things start to differentiate. Persona 5 Scramble, The Phantom Strikers, was announced on April 25th, 2019 for Japan. It released in Japan on February 20th, 2020, just before the worldwide release of Persona 5 Royal. Koei Tecmo stated in a fiscal year report for 2019, translated by Twitter user BK2128, that a localization of Persona 5 Scramble, quote, is still being planned, end quote. The fiscal year 2019 report also states that overseas sales are rising nicely. Atlus would handle the port, but the rising popularity of the series in the West, plus the recent successes of both companies, would most likely lead to a release of this game in the West. Persona 5 Scramble Japan sales at launch were around half of what Persona 5 was, and lower than fellow spin-off Persona Q Shadow of the Labyrinth. 115,995 units on PS4 and 46,415 units on Switch sold during the first week, to a total of 162,410, compared to Persona 5's 344,854 units sold. The last update, which appeared in March of 2020, hinted that Scramble was closing in on becoming Atlus's second best-selling Persona spin-off in Japan. Side note, does this lack of Switch sales really support what Atlus is doing with not porting Persona games to the Switch? More on the future of Persona 5 in general, Persona 5 Scramble is a direct sequel to Persona 5. This is stated on the official website. There is no mentioning of Persona 5 Royal. just the base game of Persona 5, which I understand is a pin in the balloon of a lot of people. This game takes place 6 months after the ending of Persona 5, and multiple mentions of a summer trip are stated in the trailer. Inherently, this makes Scramble more canon than Royal currently. Will Atlus continue to build on Persona 5's universe rather than making Persona 6? You can explain away Akechi and Kasumi as well as Maruki, but it's really hard to justify why they'd want to not have any of these characters in these future Persona 5 games. During the 2020 survey, Atlus asked players if they were interested in a Persona action RPG, as we stated earlier, even though Scramble was being released within 2 weeks of the survey being released. Does that mean that they're already considering, with its current success, a Persona 5 Scramble 2? With its success in Japan, it may find that same success in the West, especially with the success Royal had. Now let's take a look at the Persona 4 Arena games, because while Marie and Adachi are some of the key characters for Persona 4, they did not bring them into Arena Ultimax until years later with DLC. So could Kasumi, Akechi, and Maruki be on the table as DLC? It's possible. Atlus has yet to offer official comment on the situation with Persona 5 versus Royal, and their decision to follow up the original and not Royal. But it's more than likely we can assume that development for Persona 5 Scramble began prior to Royal, or Atlus straight up kept it a secret and didn't say a word about the game. There is an expected English release announcement at New Game Plus Expo, where Atlus, Sega, and Koei Tecmo are all in attendance on June 23rd, 2020, so we don't have to wait much longer. Persona 5 Arena is the elephant in the room. Where in the world is it? Well, there was this interesting write-up I found on Persona Central that I'd like to break down for you guys. It highlights all of the mentions of a Persona 5 Arena and how gradually Atlus seems to have warmed up to the idea, but also what is the possibility of this Persona 5 Arena game happening. Persona 4 Arena Ultimax's art book has an interview where Atlus director Kazuhisa Wada and Arc System Works director Takumi Iguchiya expressed in 2015, so this was a long while ago, how they thought what they saw in Persona 5 was, quote, great for fighting games, end quote, and they, quote, hope to do something together in the future, end quote. Atlus director Kazuhisa Wada took the stage in 2016 during the Arc Revolution Cup and stated the following, quote, regarding a Persona 5 Arena title, we've just finished putting all of ourselves into Persona 5 itself, so it'd have to be something we discuss further down the line, but I definitely want to make it happen. I'd appreciate it if everyone made their voices heard and sent their requests in regard to this, end quote. Fast forward to April 2017 is when Atlus registered the domain for many Persona-related titles we're familiar with nowadays. The one that we don't know of yet is, quote, P5U, end quote. Now, this same year, during that Arc Revolution Cup, yet again, Wada took the stage, except he was much more elusive about Persona 5 Arena, stating, quote, it depends on the cross-tag battle game, end quote. Sadly, mistranslations have also hurt the discussion on Persona 5 Arena. An interview conducted by Compete in 2018 states that Toshimichi Mori, director of Cross Tag Battle, said when asked about Persona 5 Arena, he doesn't want to, quote, spawn out new characters like rabbits, end quote, though he has to save some ideas for the next BlazBlue. And Mori confirmed future Persona projects. This is Arc System Works' first indication of a new Persona-based fighter since the release of Persona 4 Arena Ultimax in 2013, during which time an entirely new installment of the main series, Persona 5, was released. After this, though, Mori said in a separate interview 1 month later that it's up to Atlus and people should direct their questions to them. So this was once again a situation with a mistranslation. And in 2017, 18, and 19, those surveys that we've referenced throughout this video mention a Persona 5 fighting game as an option. So Atlus is aware of the interest there. They've made 2 fighting games for Persona already, 2 dang good fighting games, by the way. So I do hope we see more there. Now let's take a look at Arc System, what they've been up to. These are the developers of the Persona 4 Arena games. Cygames and Arc System collaborated on the recently released Granblue Fantasy Versus. Guilty Gear Strive is currently in active development now. Dragon Ball FighterZ continues to receive new DLC as they just launched Ultra Instinct Goku as a part of their second season. This is clearly a very busy developer. It's possible that despite the demand, past success, and how obvious a Persona 5 arena game should be, that Arc System's increased workload has prevented them from leaping into the development of this game, and it may be further off than we expected. But that's just Persona 5 following the path of Persona 4. Outside of Scramble, everything's been the same. So I would say do expect a fighting game which would expand on the story, and if it's like Arena Ultimax, we'll bring in the cast of Persona 3, we'll bring in the cast of Persona 4, and cross them into an interesting story that will be rewarding for fans. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will conclude the future of Persona. I want to thank once again Never, as well as Cool Dude and Dustin for working extremely hard on this video, from writing to researching to collecting gameplay to editing. I was a part of all of this too, but this project is not possible without their help. So their Twitter handles will be on screen. Go give them all a follow. Go check out what they're up to. They're hardworking people, and once again, they made this entire amazing video possible. So a big thank you to them. I once again hope you guys enjoyed. If you like more longer form videos like this and you want to consider supporting my channel here, I do have a Patreon linked in the description down below, patreon.com/MrMattyPlays, where you can get early access to my podcast, as well as Patreon exclusive videos and many more perks. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you felt the passion of Persona in this video, and I imagine we gave you a lot to talk about and think on. So I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. Do fire away, and I'll talk with all of you soon. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.